Okay, people are coming in.
Awesome.
I think we must give people some 2 or 3 minutes to log on.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay, I think we'll start. The number of participants has stabilized. That's a good sign. So, welcome to our Green Alumni Meeting. The topic of today's session is all about finance. And for that, I invited Paige Bowen from UPSA. And we will be talking everything around finance, anything you would need to know, a proper solar finance 101. But before we dive in, I have a few general announcements that I would like to show you. So let's have a look. First big news that I want to share is we've got a new academy in Pretoria. Brand new venue, new training classes, new equipment, new inverters. We're super proud. You can, from now on, book courses at the new venue. And yeah, I would like to invite everyone who's in the meeting to have a look. Maybe check in for a solar financing course if you like the session and you want to learn more. That would be an opportunity. Yeah, so that is definitely the biggest news. Generally, you guys know our courses, Solar 101 for the beginners, PV Mounter for the practical, Super Solar School for those on the hunt for the PV Green Card, and then a variety of advanced courses. I think many of you guys are alumni already, so you've done at least one of these courses, but maybe you haven't heard about our advanced courses yet. We've got the Solar Power Designer Commercial for commercial size PV systems, if you want to step up your game and face some new challenges, bigger systems, bigger installs. Or maybe the topic of financing interests you in particular. We've got a little teaser today, but of course, we want to build your appetite for a proper course. We've got a one-day training. We will be joined for that one by your colleague Neil Page, also from UPSA. And we'll go through everything that we dip into today in proper detail in that course. All the feasibility calculations, everything we'll do in that course. The next one is taking place as an online session on 10th of November. And as alumni, of course, you get a 10% discount, as always, on our courses. All right. And then contact details. You've probably got them already. If not, you'll find them also in the follow-up email. And we can answer any other questions you have. Okay, that was the short commercial break at the beginning. For all the participants, in the bottom section of your screen, you've got a little Q&A button. If you have any questions on the way that you would like Paige and me to answer. You can just pop your question there, and then I'll see it, and then we can get back to that. And to open, before we introduce ourselves properly, I've got a little poll for our participants here, because I also want to know who's here. So I'm going to launch that now. There's a pop-up window on your screens now, where you can just answer 2 questions for me. And then I would say we start. Paige, well, you know, I'm Vivian Bluemel, part of Green Solar Academy, developing the training content, not a master of financing at all, even though it was part of my studies, I must say. It is always a topic that you have to do at some point, but definitely I prefer like the technical side of PV. I'm sure a lot of the people in our audience share this opinion. But we'll see. Maybe you can open our eyes, because I know that you have a completely other perspective. You come from the finance sector, so you're definitely the person to teach us today, to share some secrets.
I will definitely try. Yeah, I didn't come from a finance background, so I came from an agri background. So I landed up in banking kind of, I wouldn't say accidentally, but I was actually initially working with the agri team within Absa Bank, and then during that started assisting on renewables, and then actually moved across full time to work in my team, which one of our focus areas is renewable energy. So I think I might have some very stupid questions for you as well. I had to learn from the start all about renewables. Yeah, I will definitely try and answer any financial questions. If you get a little bit too technical on your financial information questions, I might have to like pass it off to a team member or something, but guaranteed any questions you ask today, we will answer. If not in the session, then we'll definitely reach out via email to get back to you guys on any questions you ask.
I'm sure we'll do that. So you are senior analyst at Absa. Tell us, what is that? What are you doing? What does a senior analyst do?
I'm allowed to say I do everything. Sometimes it feels like I do everything. So my team, like I said, one of our focus areas is renewables. So the other 2 focus areas are manufacturing and also transport and logistics. So I love it because it's, as senior analyst, I get to work across all 3 of those sectors. I'm not sort of restricted, if I can call it that, to just one of them. So I get to have this really sort of overarching view of all 3 of the sectors. And what I love is they actually work together. Like there's definitely a value chain kind of aspect across them, right? So there's manufacturing even within the renewables value chain, then you have to transport it, and then there's actually the installation side of things from an installer perspective as well as from the end user's perspective. So I get to see that overarching view, which I find fascinating. My role specifically, I deal a lot with the strategy side of things, any events coordination, those type of things. If we're sponsoring events or speaking at events, I'll organize that or attend those, any form of digitization. So now we're kind of re-looking at the end-to-end process in the bank of how a client would apply for a solar installation, and how we can support installers through that as well. So I'm working on that with the IT teams because I'm not an IT person, but I'll kind of manage those kind of projects. Yeah, so I think those are sort of my key roles in the team at this stage. And then we do have analysts within each of the sectors. We've got specialists in each sector and analysts in each sector, and then they'll actually do like in-depth, more like focused work, and then kind of feed that up to me, that then I will be working on like the strategy and putting it all together and making sure everything's aligned to the broader bank strategy and everything.
Okay, nice. So you've got definitely the overview of everything that's happening and coming.
Yes.
All right, good. We have a few topics prepared just to give you an overview what we're tapping into now. We'll start with some questions on like financing the setup of a company, vetting processes, think we've talked about that a lot in the past, but things are happening, things are evolving, so there's definitely more to discuss. And then we'll also look at what to do when you got the financing, how that whole process works. If you are active as an installer or planner, or just a partner in a bank finance project, just to see what to expect and to be prepared, to not sit in a meeting and feel stupid because you don't understand anything. Yes, so first question on seed funding. Because we got that question from alumni in the past, when you start your own company and when you start setting up, it is quite like you need to purchase tools, you need to purchase first material. To get a proper start in the industry can be quite costly. What options do I have if I'm founding a company now?
So, I mean, we as ABSA obviously look to finance startup companies as well. So we would be supporting companies like that. We do have a team referred to as enterprise development that specifically actually look at startup companies, and they would be able to provide a lot of guidance in terms of even just how do you set up a budget, like what kind of financial planning do you need to be doing, really the basics of starting your company, but from a financial perspective. We know a lot of companies will already have been in operation, but now they just kind of need a little bit more of that like financial guidance, because now they do want to expand a bit or actually buy their own machinery and equipment, or those kinds of things. So we do have a team specifically that looks at that, and I'm happy to share their details. But then what's also really great with this team is they've got a lot of relationships and insight into things like IDC, DTI, so any of the grant kind of things that government are offering to any startup companies, or like IDC loans, those kind of things. And we know it's like it's a bit of an admin process, right? There's a lot of paperwork that you need to fill in to get any of those loans. So they can assist with all of that as well. And then what's quite nice with that is they can help you come up with a longer term plan. So for example, if you take out an IDC loan, what's the plan in the 3 years once you start paying that off? Potentially we could take over that loan for you, finish paying it off for you, and then offer you funding at like a slightly cheaper rate or something like that, to just help you stretch out your cash flow a little bit more. So there's definitely options. I would say where you're looking at your IDC, DTI kind of funding, you're looking more as like your startup, your very, very, brand new company, kind of need to still draw up a business plan, haven't operated a day. That's definitely going to be more your funding side of things. And then once you've grown a little bit more, then I think us or any of the commercial banks really, but not we would then be able to step in and assist you further with that from a funding perspective.
Okay, that's cool. That's very nice that you assist with the whole topic of like having a business plan, setting that up. I think that is something you can Google that, but then it's different if you do it for your own business.
Yeah, I think also to be able to have the in-person conversation, right? And ask the question to someone who knows. I mean, I don't know, I Google things all the time, but trying to get the wording precisely right for like that one specific thing that I'm trying to answer, like it doesn't always work. So being able to have that in-person conversation, I think is really important. And I do like that kind of thing where we offer the financial courses, not courses, but financial education. So if you have a company and you maybe want to support your employees from their financial perspective as well, we can come and do financial education as like a little class type thing to your employees as well, and offer them banking products. So it's not just, if you think of a commercial bank, we're not just going to support like your business's profits kind of thing. We care about more than just that. We actually want to support like your vision for the future, where you want to grow, like what is your investment goals? Do you want to save up to buy your own property? Anything like that, we will support you through that. And we want to sort of like walk that journey with you and help you get to where you want to be. So, and that includes your employees. So definitely financial education is really, really important to us. And that's why we support this kind of course. It's, vitally important.
That's awesome. That's really nice. Like a proper full service for anyone, any entrepreneur, basically. Yeah. just a reminder to our attendees, we've got the Q&A button down there where you can type your questions, and then we'll get back to those in towards the end of the session, I would say. Unless it fits very well, then I try to squeeze it in. Okay, awesome. So you support us with anything we need to know, provide seed funding, and then I'm an installer taking projects. How do I get vetted as an installer in order to receive any of the renewable energy funding from ABSA? I'm sure processes are similar in other banks, but yeah, the whole topic for vetting. Maybe what can you do wrong? What is like a proper red flag where you say, looking at that, seeing that in an installer, it's an immediate no for you?
Okay. So I think there's sort of two ways or two areas where you need to kind of look at it. So we will look at it from an installer perspective. So what's your experience? How many previous installations have you done? How big are they? If you have done really small installations in the past, like you're mostly doing residential installations, and you suddenly come to us and you're like, oh, I'm going to build like a megawatt like solar farm. No offense, but we're not going to give you money.
Yeah.
So I think it very much comes down to your experience. So we will look at it from there. What kind of equipment are you using? What experience do you have? What qualifications do you have? Does the team have that's doing the installation? Are there engineers on board to do like the structural integrity of the buildings and the roofs? So there's that side of it from the installation perspective. However, then from a bank perspective, we obviously need to look at it from a credit point of view. So as soon as you are wanting to provide solar to a client, we would receive your quote. But in order for us to then give the finance to you to now actually go do this installation, we would need to basically just do, it's referred to as due diligence. So it's pretty much just getting to know you as a customer or as a client. So they would be checking, you know, are you VAT registered? Are you tax compliant? We would need a letter of confirmation from your bank to prove that you've got, you know, an actual valid bank account. We do standard checking in terms of like, have you ever gone in for sanctioning, those types of things from a bank perspective. So there's definitely two ways we look at it.
Yeah. So there's like the standard paperwork, like just boxes you tick off. And then it sounds like it's also very individual. Like when you say you look into the companies directly to see what kind of staff they have, what experience they have. So it's...
Yeah. So I think like with us, we don't limit our clients, and when I say clients, I'm now referring to the end users of solar. We don't limit them to say, you have to use this one installer. So we would be open to any installer that came and wanted funding. We are obviously doing vetting of installers. So let me, again, there's a lot happening in renewables, we know this. So from the bank's perspective, we are onboarding installers. And for that, there's loads of documentation that we need in terms of the structure of your company, your organogram, like then we'll need like your financials, those sorts of things. And then we're going to actually look at onboarding you. So that's a whole like contractual process where we enter into agreement with you that you can actually then sort of recommend us to a client. But we can also say to a client, if a client comes to us and says, I'm in this area, do you know of any installers? We can say, yeah, we do actually, like these are them, and we have already vetted them. However, it is a long process, and to try and get through, I mean, you guys can see how many installers there are in South Africa at the moment. To get through all of those installers from a contractual perspective, it takes forever. So what we do is kind of a basic type vetting process where we're not going to contract with you, but we do actually have a team that will individually check, or like every single installer that comes to us. Once we've dealt with you, we've done that checking, we'll maintain the checks. But then for every installation, we're not going to phone you, kind of thing. So brand new installer, if we've never dealt with you before, expect a phone call from the bank. We're going to need a bit more information.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's really worth building a relationship with you, like starting small and then like building trust, because I mean, it is a mutual relationship, and you need to trust the installer needs to trust you. So then do you have many installers who like started small and then have been growing with you?
We do. Yeah, there's been quite a few. We were actually chatting to one today. where one of my colleagues, Roshana, she reached out to the installer directly to just sort of have a conversation. And we were chatting, they are a small company at the moment, but in our conversation, we were saying we want to support them in future. They're definitely going to grow and they're going to become a much bigger installer. And we obviously want to support that. So
No,
it's definitely.
that's really nice. So, okay, what exactly are you checking? Are you like going to site and like checking the installations? How deep does the check go if you say it's like individual checks? Is it enough to phone and then I explain you what we have and what we do in our company, or do you actually also send people out there to check your installations?
Bit of both. So if it's, we would start off with we're going to do a desktop research. So if you've got a website or whatever, we're going to look at that. We're then going to phone you and have the conversation with you around your experience, all those things that I was mentioning earlier. And then we're going to kind of ask you for proof. So if you say to me, oh, we've got, I don't know, an easy one, registered electrician, I'm going to say to you, I need that registration number. So those sorts of things where we have a proof point, right? So we'll do that. And then the bankers, so then obviously it's the client will be in the region, and then their banker is basically the person in front of the client. Okay, that person would be doing the check on property of the installation for their client. So they would, if it's in, we see it a lot in the farming communities where you would then actually be able to, the banker would go with to like the neighbor because that's the other person that had an installation by that installer, because that's very much word of mouth of good installers, especially when you're looking in the sort of agri, more rural type of farming communities. It's like, oh, well, my neighbor got solar from whomever XYZ installer, so I want to use them too. So then your banker would be able to go and see, the various sites. So it's not something that is forced for every single installer. It's not like we will definitely come and see one of your installation sites, but definitely the more information an installer gives us, the better. So if you've got feedback from clients, photos of previous installations, all of those kinds of things, submit it. Like it's just going to help speed up the process, quite frankly. Less questions are going to come back from a credit perspective, because we obviously look at it as our team. And then we give the recommendation that then goes through to credit. And then credit are looking at the installation and the client from a financial perspective. So the more information you give, the easier it's going to be, really.
Yeah, okay. And that information also includes feasibility calculations of the project?
Definitely. So a really important thing for us is to see how you've sized the system. Our concern is always, we get this quote, and when we're looking at it, we're kind of going, but the system is, I don't know, 10 times too big or 10 times too small. And we then need to understand why, because both are actually a concern. And we also check it against kind of benchmark pricing that we're seeing in the industry from other installers. So if you can't really show how or why you've sized the system where you have, that does not give us any level of comfort. And it really does actually create a red flag. So yeah, size the system. Even if you do it on Excel, we're not saying you have to go and, buy the really expensive software, especially if you may be starting out and stuff and you can't afford it at that time. Do it on Excel, but show somehow why your system is sized the way it's sized.
Be transparent and like know what you're talking about. Yeah.
We take it a lot and that's also why I think we prefer actually having it as a conversation. We'd rather phone you and then just pop you an email, because we can hear when you're talking to us your level of knowledge, right? We can judge it a little bit. And when one of our analysts phones you, Kat was actually telling me, Katlejo in my team today, where she phoned an installer and they were like, no, they don't actually know anything about solar. They're just contracting out to other people, but their names and everything are on the list. And we're like, you don't even know like what a kilowatt hour is. Like that's not, no. So it's really important that you actually know what you're talking about and that we have that comfort just in having a conversation with you.
Yeah, nice. That's actually I find that really nice that you're building the relationship and really like look out for true relationships and honesty and that kind of thing. And it's nice to hear because, like, you know, sometimes banks have that reputation that they're like the mean ones saying no, and then your project dies. So yeah, it's nice that you're applying some kind of, I don't know how you say that.
A human element, I guess.
Yes, the human element.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure you can like even out when you know, okay, I'm just getting started. So you've done the feasibility calculation in Excel, and maybe it's not perfect, but you know your numbers. And then will you assist with that as well? When I hand you like a half done sheet with my feasibility calculation, and I'm like, okay, I'm stuck at this point, but I know the numbers are right because I did like the side steps then and sizing of inverters I can do. And then will you step in from there as well?
Honestly, typically no. So, I mean, bear in mind, we're a bank. We are not sitting here with, professional engineers on our sort of in our renewable energy team that are able to look at every single deal. So we've got the knowledge, but you on the ground need to be able to like do that feasibility study, and then we can understand it. But in terms of actually building it, I mean, we've got the Excel knowledge, we understand what it's supposed to look like. We've built our own, so we will actually kind of plug yours into ours and see if what you're giving and what we're kind of getting in our model aligns and makes sense. And that's where we can say your system seems a bit oversized or undersized. But in terms of kind of I want to say like doing it for you kind of thing, like finishing it off, we'd actually recommend you reach out to bigger players within the industry and ask them for the guidance, or companies like Green Solar Academy, do a training course.
It wasn't perfect. It wasn't planned. I wasn't sure if you want to say no. But yeah, okay. So first do solar financing course with Green, then you may contact Paige.
Exactly. I think it's there's a reason, Green Academy do what they do, and there's a reason we as the commercial banks do what we do. It's a different level of knowledge in the different areas. We are financiers. We're not installers. So yeah, ask the people who will know better than us.
I have one question that I would like to ask already from the audience. What is the role of PV Green Card in the vetting process? And do you require PV Green Cards for the installations you finance?
No. Okay, so we do not require a PV Green Card. It's definitely a bonus. So if you've got a PV Green Card, it's a tick box, and we do look at that. But it's not to say if you don't have a PV Green Card, we won't support you as an installer. That's also not to say if you've got the PV Green Card, but you have never done installation in your life, and you actually have no idea what you're talking about, kind of thing. That doesn't mean we're going to support you either. So it's the way the PV Green Card is at the moment. No, it's not a requirement, but we are very supportive of the PV Green Card. So we are actually sponsors of Sapia and sponsors of the PV Green Card. We are supporting SME installers to go through training to achieve their PV Green Card. So it's definitely something we see a lot of potential and a lot of importance in, and are very, very supportive of. So not a requirement, but I would still suggest you get it. Like, it's still really beneficial. Yeah. But from a banking perspective, it's not a requirement in order to get finance. No.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Same for us. I mean, you can do the PV Green Card, but it doesn't, like, our perspective is totally, it's a good training. It's a good assessment. It definitely, people fail who are not ready to do the PV Green Card assessment. But if you've done the training and the assessment 5 years ago, I mean, industry develops, so you need to catch up on knowledge. You should do, it doesn't have to be a training with us, but like at least some product trainings and like just continue learning.
It has to be a training with you. Don't encourage them to go anywhere else.
If I'm being honest, it must be a training with us. Yeah, but you have to come
to ABSA for finance. You're not allowed to go anywhere else.
Just make that clear. Yes. Okay. Good. So now we are vetted by the bank. We can receive funding. How does all of that work? I think it's like the residential part, I think, is more or less clear, it would be normally maybe your customers finance the PV system through their home loan. Maybe they have equity. They don't even need financing. I think that cases are pretty simple. But if we go into the commercial and industrial sector, I think there it becomes a bit more tricky because projects get so big that financing is a requirement. How does that work? If, like, speaking for a company who has never done any of that, never dealt with like a major finance project, and now I'm sitting in a meeting with all the important players, I'm sure I'm overwhelmed. How does it work? Walk us through it. Who's getting the loan in such a constellation?
So the way it would work is the end user, where the installation is actually going to take place, that client. So your client basically and our client. They will come to the bank and apply for the finance. The finance will be done in their name. They will be liable to pay back the loan. That's on them. Where the installer comes in, and there's multiple ways to finance a solar installation. So I'll talk to you about the one that's kind of the most popular, and I'll just use this opportunity to say green asset finance from ABSA. Really good interest rates and everything. So it's definitely our most popular product. So it's a commercial asset finance product. So kind of maybe think of your vehicle where you take out your loan against an asset, and you pay it off every month. So it's based on that kind of framework, but it's been adjusted specifically for solar. So we look at solar deals completely differently to how we look at any other asset financing, because we know you can't look at them in the same way. Yeah. So for green asset finance, let's say the client comes to us, they want green asset finance. We check their financials. We're happy to give them the loan. Like, cool, great. It gets paid out in tranches. So what happens is, let's say I don't know, I'm going to work on quite simple numbers because my mental maths is not great. Yes, I know I work for a bank. So let's say the installation cost is R1 million, round numbers. We pay, and most, I think all banks actually, I don't know precisely what the split is, but it's normally on asset finance, a 50, 30, 20. So we would give you 50% upfront. It's basically like a deposit. We as ABSA will pay that to you as the installer. We're not paying it to the client and then client's paying you. We will pay you directly. So how it happens is
the client has got the loan contract. So the client is ABSA's client, and then I as an installer am just also involved. So I don't really, well, I'm vetted by you, but I don't have a loan contract with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, if I can again try and put it into, think of it, if anyone's bought a vehicle, and you go finance your vehicle, right? You don't ever actually see, I don't know, how much is a car? I don't even know how much a car is. I work in that department. I'm sorry. I have not looked at car prices in a very long time.
I have no idea.
No clue. So let's say buy a cheap car. It's buy I don't know, 50K car. I think it's a cheap car. I don't know. Let's say it's a 50K car. You don't see that money in your account. Think of it if you buy your car, right? It goes straight to the dealership.
Yeah.
Same exact process, but it's your loan. You're responsible for that money, but it goes straight to the dealership. So think of yourself as the installer like a dealer. It's the client's loan, but we're paying you as the dealer. So we'll pay you eventually in the tranches, the R1 million of the final installation cost.
Okay, so the customer's got the contract, but then I as an installer get the money directly from
the bank. Yeah. So we would, based on the sort of tranches, like I was saying, enter into the agreement with the client. Client would receive the invoice from you, right? And they would then say to us, here's the invoice from my installer. I am happy with the invoice. Please, will you go ahead and pay the first 50%? And they sign. And we go, cool, thanks. And we pay you, the installer, the first 50%. Right? From there, you've now got a little bit of cash flow, you can go buy the stock and everything, and you start the installation. You've started the installation, client's happy with the progress, you know, where we're at and everything. Client goes, cool, I'm happy. You can go ahead and pay the next 30%. Again, they sign and we go, fantastic. And we pay you, the installer, the final, the 30%. Once the installation is complete, the COC is signed, system is working, client is happy, it's amazing. They then say to us, these installers were great, definitely recommend them, use them again, onboard them as vetted installers, all of those wonderful things. I'm happy, please pay the final 20%. And that's when we will then execute that final payment of 20%. And then you as an installer, you're done. And then the client will then need to obviously pay that back over whatever term it is that they've entered into an agreement with us.
Okay. What happens in case of dispute? If the customer says, no, something is not right, they refuse to kind of let you pay the last tranche to me.
So it has actually happened before. Some clients are, I don't know, just fussy. And some clients have landed up in the situation where the installer actually, the installation wasn't done correctly. It wasn't working like they were told it would work. And then the installer did need to come back and, you know, fix it before we were able to pay the last tranche. So, I mean, obviously we don't want it to get to that stage. So we have legal teams in place, and we will then sort of help come to an agreement between the installer and the client to the best of our abilities. So yeah, I mean, ideally, let's not get there, quite frankly. That would be amazing. But if there is some kind of dispute, the installer would be able to contact us directly. The client was obviously able to contact us directly. We would be speaking to both of them. At the moment, we do have a case where the last tranche can't be released at the moment because the client isn't happy with the complete installation. So we will then actually reach out to the installer and go, okay, explain to us, like, what's the system issue? Like, what was agreed to? Do you have any like proof of this, of what you said versus what they said? So I think that's also an important thing for installers to note before they enter into an agreement with the client. When you sort of give your quote to a client and everything, once they've accepted the quote, have a type of agreement in place in terms of it's like SLAs, right? Your service level agreement. What kind of turnaround time can the client expect for you to actually complete this installation, have it complete, up and running, signed off, etc., etc. Have that on your invoice, because that is kind of like a legal agreement that we can then actually refer back to.
Yeah.
And if that's in place, you've got a bit more of a leg to stand on as well. It's not, you know, this concept of like a he said, she said.
Yeah.
Avoid it, just put in writing.
Okay. Sounds like you need to have your paperwork even better prepared when dealing in like a project where a bank is involved. And I mean, what we recommend always is have everything in writing, have protocols of like handing over, commissioning protocols, that in that case you can say, okay, no, you signed this and that, and you said it was okay to this and that, so that the customer can't just make up anything, and that you have an actual proof. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also comes down to, you know, even things like your payment terms and what I've just explained now with like the payment process of 50, 30, 20. Loads of quotes at the moment are coming in and saying, oh, cash on delivery. If you've got a client that is going to want bank financing, chances of getting the 100% upfront or even 80% deposit, slim to none, quite frankly. So on your agreements, like, check your payment terms. If you've got a client that needs bank financing, work on the concept that, you know what, I'm probably only going to get a 50% deposit. Hopefully, like that's pretty much the maximum that I'm going to be getting. So if you are struggling from like a working capital perspective, you maybe can't go and buy your machinery, your equipment, everything, the panels, inverters, batteries, etc. Because maybe the wholesaler is saying cash up front. And we're seeing that. A lot of the wholesalers are saying now, because of the stock issues and, you know, all of that kind of things, they're saying, if you want the stock, pay 100%. And now you're kind of, as the installer, going, but I'm only going to get 50% from the bank. How do I cover the rest of that? that's where you as the installer then need to potentially be looking at a working capital kind of financing solution for your business.
So an additional temporary loan that you can take as a company to buffer that cash position.
Yeah, so there's a few options there as well. And I mean, the simplest one that most people will have heard of is an overdraft facility. So that would just be on your check account, and it's there, and you could sort of dip into it when you needed to pay in a bit extra to get the stock. And then as the rest of the payments came in, you could then sort of replenish your overdraft. But there are more options that we can offer you, sort of trade finance, receivables finance, so we can kind of give you money against the inventory that you have, or give you money against maybe the payments that we can see still need to come into your account. So there are multiple options. So if anyone is interested in that, like we can definitely, I can send you the details of the people, the right people to be speaking to. Because it's not just, you know, yes, okay, and again, like I said, we support the whole value chain, and we don't want to just say, okay, well, it's the end user and this is how we support them. But as an installer, we know that you need this working capital financing, and you're trying to run a business, and you need to be profitable, and to try and pay everything in cash, or you know, be purely reliant on your clients to pay you in order to run your business, it's a huge constraint on your cash flow. And we're seeing that as actually one of the main reasons a lot of the smaller installers actually go under. It's purely a cash flow management issue.
Yeah. You live from like project to project, and it's
exactly.
like project finance is the other kind of,
So it's a tricky way, and not an ideal way to be operating if you are looking to stay in the game long term.
Yeah.
And get the bigger projects. Yeah.
Okay. For those kind of projects, I know I asked you about feasibility calculations already. The bigger the projects, the better and more complex the feasibility calculations for sure have to be. Do you have a recommendation how to do that? Do you have any like software tool, or what would you recommend?
So I mean, the most popular one we see is definitely the heloscope designs, where they mapped out where the panels are going to go on the roof, or on, if it's a ground mount system, on the ground and everything, and you know, give us that feedback in terms of what does that kind of estimate that the usage is going to be, what's going to be produced, all of that. So that's definitely hands down the most popular software that we are seeing from a feasibility study perspective.
Yeah. Then that is like a respected tool where you say like, okay, no, that's worth more than your home built Excel spreadsheet.
Definitely. So I mean, if we're seeing a heloscope analysis versus, you know, your Excel, very much dependent on the project size though. If it is a small installation, we're not going to sort of neglect the Excel analysis. It's still valid, it's still important. But as soon as you get to like a larger scale project and you're still kind of doing it on Excel, we're like, maybe not that we won't support you, but we're definitely going to look a little bit harder, and want a little bit more information.
Okay, so I mean, we use that. We're using PV Sol software, like just another software choice. And we always say, use that because you can print that automatic report that has all that information in it. And like we recommend doing that just like for the customers. First of all, that looks more professional. You've got a nice title page. You've got everything mapped out, 3D design, nice graphics. But if you say as a bank, that also builds trust in the project when you have
very much so
a report template. That's a good tip. That's a really good tip.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, and I'm also not saying now please go and spend a lot of money and a lot of time just trying to make everything look pretty, because it's also all very well that things look good, but you still don't actually know what you're talking about. Like having a proper, you know, structured proposal with, and let me say this, please include your contact details on your quote. Like I said, we phone everybody. Do you know how difficult it is to get hold of some installers if you don't include your contact details on your quote? Please. So I'm just going to put that out there for everybody, like spread that news. So
no, it's important. It's basics, but you forget about that. Yeah, true.
No, people do. And I mean, your banking details will be there, like the whole, you know, line items for every single piece of equipment you're planning on using for this installation. Like cables 100 meters or whatever. You've got to that level of detail, but I can't contact you. So yeah, please don't forget your contact details when you guys are doing quotes and invoices. Like,
Paige is going to give you more money when she got your phone number. You heard that.
you're gonna get me fired. Don't do that.
Okay. We've got quite a few questions already, but I have one more question to you before we can look at the Q&A. So if anyone in the audience has another question, pop them there. I'll have a look just now. But my last official question to you is, what is the most important vocabulary that we should know? Because I think that is one of the intimidating things. Like, I know we have that too in PV. We're throwing around kilowatt hours and I don't know, what other fancy abbreviations do we have? Kilowatt peaks. And then you listen to a completely different world of people, and they are using their language and kind of their words. So what is it that I must know that when I'm in a meeting with the important finance people, that I can understand at least what they are talking about?
Ideally, there really shouldn't be any vocab that's being used that's sort of so over your heads. And if it is, I would say, you know what, just ask. A lot of the time, if I still have to ask questions on practically a daily basis of what do these acronyms mean. The financial industry loves acronyms. We really do. And I've asked the question before, and I've gone, you know, what does that mean? And it's actually fascinating how many people can't tell you. So, I mean, I'll let you in on like a little bit of a secret here. There is a link on the ABSA website, our internal website, that helps us learn the acronyms, because there are so many, and we can go, if we have heard this weird acronym in a conversation, we can go search for it on this platform of ours to try and figure out what it means. So definitely, if you're not sure what an acronym means, ask. Also in that situation, Google is your friend. Google under the table quickly. I've done that too. So definitely you can do those kinds of things. Yeah, we do try and keep the language simpler. Because also often the client doesn't understand the financial jargon. So yeah, we don't want to talk over the client's head. We don't want to talk over you as the installer. We don't want to talk over your head either. But if we're looking at sort of typical things that we might be saying is sort of ROI, so return on investment, it's pretty much, you know, just what is the performance of the solar investment going to be? Things like maybe know the products as well. So if they're saying OD, they're referring to an overdraft solution, or CAF, it's commercial asset finance. So that's like the product I was talking about earlier, right? Things like if your client owns their property, they might be talking like CPF, which is commercial property finance, or MBBL, which is a mortgage-backed business loan. So it's two types of products that work for property finance, and sort of it's an option that your client may want to add their solar, similar to how the home loans guys do it, and add it onto their home loan. Your commercial clients could add it onto their property finance, which would then be, like I'm saying, the CPF or the MBBL. So that's just kind of a sort of product kind of overview. So there's that. And then, I don't know, maybe things like if Vivian, you mentioned to me when we chatted earlier, NPV, so net present value. Yes. So I'll maybe just highlight that one. It's basically looking at, is this a good investment? So it's kind of similar to ROI in that sense, but it's the present value. So the calculation is basically the present value of how much money is coming into the business versus how much money cash is going out. So we're just kind of looking there. So we'll do that calculation on our end for the installation. So then kind of how much is the installation going to cost this client versus what are their savings going to be by doing this installation? And does that kind of work out? That means it's going to be a good investment. Like, is the client going to be not necessarily making money, but saving money by doing this installation? I think that's...
If you put it that way, it's crystal clear to us. It's the efficiency. It's like output and input. Yeah. So that's cool that it's actually not so far away. Yeah. Well, in our solar finance course will definitely also cover all these basic terms like net present value, ROI, what it is and how to calculate it and how to like make it look good in a project. Yeah, but it's nice that you say you have to look up the fancy vocabulary too. And I made good experience with just asking questions. Maybe not the basics of the basics, so maybe like do a basic course, and then you are not on level 1 but starting on level 2, and then from there you can just ask any question. I think that is a very good tip for everyone.
I think, I mean, even if I can follow on from you and education, like it's doing courses like the financial course. Last week I was on a credit course. I'm learning more about the credit process, and I also had to sort of say, I don't know what that means, because I've never worked in the actual credit side of things. So I think, yeah, teach yourself things, allow yourself to sort of be open to learning. No one expects you to know everything about everything. And we're going to come to you as the installer and ask you questions about the installation because we don't know. We potentially haven't been to the site. We don't know why you've sized the system like you've sized it. Maybe it's small for a reason. Maybe it's extra large for a reason. We don't know. So definitely, I'd say just be open to asking the questions.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm looking at our questions here. Patrick is asking, I am attending from Botswana and I would like to know if that provision is available outside South Africa.
All the way from Botswana. That's very cool. So yes, from an ABSA perspective, we do have a presence throughout Africa. So definitely we could be offering you some form of asset finance, or my understanding of this is you would be an installer. So Patrick, there, when we would be able to offer your clients asset finance so that they could fund their solar installation. And for yourself as the installer, we could, same banking products would apply. So we would still be able to offer you a working capital type solution for your business. So yes, definitely there should be ABSA branches in Botswana. I don't immediately have a contact, but I worked more with the agri team into the rest of Africa. So I could definitely find out a Botswana contact for you and get that person's number and name to you.
Okay, we'll include that in a follow-up email. We've got everyone who signed up. We've got your email addresses, and then we'll just send a follow-up email with Paige's contacts and all the links and team fellows you mentioned. We're going to send that to you. Okay, next question comes from Seymour. Does your bank offer unsecured loans to individuals for solar or backup power finance deals?
Hi, Seymour, thanks for the question. So obviously as a bank, we prefer secured funding, just so that it's just a preference, right? We are a financial institution. But on solar specifically, and I think, let me preface what I'm saying with, imagine on all those bank ads, there's that little asterisk. So please just imagine there's like a little asterisk next to my head right now. Terms and conditions apply. It's very much dependent on the client's profile. We do offer unsecured lending. With solar, we look at the cash flow savings that the client's going to get from installing solar as part of the funding. So it's then not necessarily that we would need to take a property or the solar, sort of the asset itself is the security, if that makes sense. So yes, but very much risk profile dependent, client dependent, all of those wonderful things. So yeah, I think it's kind of one of those economist type answers where I'm like, it depends.
Yeah, we've got that a lot too.
Yeah.
Okay. Another international participant. That's so cool. Salvador is joining from Mozambique, and he would like to know what that the PV green card. Oh, yeah, okay. Does the PV green card also work in Mozambique? I think I can answer that one.
Yeah, please go for it.
Officially, no. Officially, PV green card is a South African thing. But I know of quite some installers who've done the PV green card training and PV green card assessment from Namibia and Zimbabwe as well. And in Namibia, people are asking also for PV green card. So it's a thing that other countries kind of adapt. So officially it doesn't exist in Mozambique. But if you have a customer asking for it, yeah, why not? I mean, I think the principle is quite successful. So maybe it will be official soon. I don't know. Keep asking for it.
I'll ask on my side as well, maybe. Let me see.
Maybe
In my
if
next
customer
engagement
has
with
a
Safia.
presence, then maybe that would help in order to vet an installer when you have a PV green card, like after the South African standard.
Yeah, let me ask.
Okay. Another question from Cabello regarding software. I have tried Helioscope in Botswana, but the Zoom capability is not that great. I wonder if this depends on regions. I don't know. I work with PV Sol, which I can recommend very much. We haven't had any problems like that with that. And second part of the question, does ABSA Botswana have the same solar financing support programs as those in South Africa?
So yeah, agreed. I think if Helioscope's not working for you, try the one that Vivian's mentioning. I think maybe it is dependent on region. It's also not something that we've come across, but it would actually be very interesting to find out. With regards to the solar support in the rest of Africa, the products are the same in the terms of asset finance. So you could do asset finance. The green asset finance product that I was specifically mentioning earlier, again, end user, is at the moment just in South Africa. Reason being, it's, it was started here. So we are currently engaging with the rest of Africa colleagues, and my manager has had that engagement. So we are looking at rolling it out into the rest of Africa. But at this stage, no. But I think it's also something that we haven't actually found that much queries around it, to be honest. We found a lot of the African countries are actually way ahead of South Africa in terms of their renewable energy. So there haven't been that many questions coming in, but a lot of it, there's more sort of interest at the moment from a funding perspective in some of the African countries. So yeah, it is something we're looking at rolling out. I can maybe try and get a bit of a timeline on that for you, and we can let you know that in the email after the session. But at this stage, like green asset finance, no, but all the other products, it's exactly the same. So overdraft, working capital, your normal asset finance, which it's not like the normal asset finance is different from a funding perspective. It works in the exact same way. We just look at the cash flow differently. So we would be able to advise a client and maybe just get like a shorter term for the client or anything like that. So we are sharing those models with the rest of Africa if they are wanting to use it. But yeah, I feel like I'm rambling now. So
okay. We have 2 more minutes. Maybe I think 2 short answers we can fit in. How do you check that the installers are experienced? I think we touched on that. Anything to add?
No, it really is just a conversation. Any proof you can give us, obviously, vital. Yeah, it's a conversation.
Okay, cool. Then do we need to do the training for financing with green solar before onboarding with ABSA? I think that answer is clear, isn't it? It's a big fat yes. Of course not. But if you want to get the best training and then the best financing, that is the only route.
Love it. Yes. No, we can definitely onboard you without the training. But obviously, I think having the financial training will support you as your business in terms of how to deal with the clients, do the invoicing, do the feasibility studies, and then actually get a positive finance application out with the bank, because you'll know what to give us, basically. So yeah, definitely would say they work hand in hand, but no, again, not a requirement, but do it anyway.
Okay, last question. I've got one from Kaylin. please specify on that. I'm not sure what you mean. And another one, clients have often asked if we could provide financial funding for their residential installations where they could payment month as many don't have a lump. Oh, okay. Where they could pay monthly, maybe, as many don't have a lump sum to pay for the installation. What would be the best and easiest way to offer financial assistance to clients?
Okay, so definitely, our home loans department do have a very nice offering in terms of residential clients being able to fund their home solar installations. There is a calculator actually on the website that clients can use as well. So if you Google, always Google ABSA beat load shedding as my phrase, and then I don't know exactly what the link is. So again, we can put it in the email, but Google the phrase ABSA beats load shedding or ABSA beat load shedding. And the website page will come up. There's a calculator where clients can actually input their current RAND value of their utility bill. And then this calculator will kind of give them an estimate of what type of installation costings perspective they would then be looking at sort of funding. And through that same link, they can actually then apply for someone to phone them back or get a bit more information on funding support for that installation. So definitely they can, if they've got a home loan with us, they can add it onto the home loan as a refinance. What's it called? As you can see, I don't work for that department. A further advance or a re-advance. There we go. I remember the terminology. See, terminology, it's an issue. So that's definitely an option. Alternatively, and it's again dependent on the client, right? They might have be able to increase their credit limit on their credit cards and fund it using that. Or they could get a personal loan and fund the solar installation for that. So there are a few options, and I think each client would kind of choose what they prefer. And also, I think if you just go on that link and sort of submit a query through to that department, they'll also be able to have that conversation with you and advise you being the client, advise the client, which would be a good option for them to take up. So I would suggest that your clients maybe check out that link, and then they'll be able to apply for finance through that, definitely.
Okay, good. We've come to an end. That hour passed so quickly. I think we could have continued some more. Thank you very much, first of all, to our audience for asking very interesting questions.
Yeah.
And then thanks to Paige for being with us and for sharing the information and being so open about how it works. And my biggest takeaway is definitely there's humans working at banks too, and it is like a good conversation, and trust brings you quite far, and it is definitely worth it building up a relationship. Not just like, I mean, we know it applies for everything. Build up a relationship with your wholesaler, build up a relationship with your installer environment, and then also include the banks in that.
Awesome, but thanks, Vivian. This was really great. I really enjoyed the session, and we definitely could have spoken for longer, which was kind of fascinating because I think initially I was a bit like, what are you going to ask me about finance for an hour? But clearly there's stuff to talk about. So thank you. It was really, really great to be here. I appreciate the invite. It was really awesome. So thanks.
Thank you. Maybe we must tease a part 2. We'll see. I'm sure there's enough. Send us questions.
Yeah, send questions. Happy to answer questions.
Okay. I'll share Paige's contact details and everything we mentioned, and I'll see you next time. Invitations for the next alumni meeting will be, as always, in your email inbox. See you then.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.